Ask a mechanic who has worked on the same brand for 20 years whether that brand is in trouble, and he will not talk about market share. He will tell you what happened the last time he needed a part. There is a signal that shows up in a service department years before it shows up in a financial statement, and the people who see it first are the ones holding the wrenches. It is not build quality. Build quality is a lagging indicator, and it usually stays good long after the company has changed. The signal is what the company does when something breaks, not how fast. Speed can be bought, and a well-funded service operation can always add trucks. The signal is narrower than speed, and much harder to fake, because it is about authority rather than resources. Specifically, whether the person sent to your machine is allowed to fix it. That sounds too simple to be diagnostic. It is not, and here is why. Every other measure of a manufacturer can be managed. Marketing can be improved, spec sheets can be tuned, warranty terms can be rewritten, and dealer satisfaction surveys can be run by people who want a particular answer. What cannot be managed is the moment a machine is down and somebody has to decide, on the spot, whether solving the customer's problem is permitted. That decision is made by policy. The policy is written a long way from the job site, and it reveals exactly what the company is optimizing for. A policy is a company's real strategy, written in a form nobody proofreads for public relations. The annual report says the customer comes first. The dispatch rule says whether the technician can carry a hose. Take the clearest example in this channel's comment section, because it contains every variable. A man who had run Caterpillar skid, steers his entire working life, had a drive hose blow. He photographed the failure and sent the picture to the dealer in advance, so there was no diagnostic mystery. Everybody involved already knew what was wrong. The fee for somebody to come and look at it was $500, paid before a single bolt was turned. The technician who arrived was not permitted to bring the part. Sit with that for a second, because it is the whole diagnosis in one visit. The company knew what the fault was. It knew where the machine was. It had a technician driving to that address anyway, and the policy still sent that man out empty, to confirm in person a failure that had already been confirmed in a photograph. It was a Friday. The machine was needed Sunday. The second visit happened Monday, one day after the job the machine existed to do. The owner paid a penalty for the work he could not finish, was billed 2 separate service fees on top of it, on a machine still under warranty, and called a Kubota dealer on the Monday before his own machine was even repaired. 50 people pressed like on that comment. Not because it was extreme, but because it was recognizable. Now here is what a mechanic reads in that story, and it is not the money. 2 truck rolls to fix 1 hose means the routing system is not optimizing for machine uptime, it is optimizing for something else, and the something else is billable events. A technician not permitted to carry a common wear part means the parts and labor functions are being measured separately, so nobody owns the outcome. The parts department hits its numbers. The service department hits its numbers. The machine is down until Monday. Before we go further, if you run the iron, or turn the wrenches on it, subscribe, and turn on the bell. And a $500 fee charged before diagnosis, on a fault already photographed, means the diagnostic visit has stopped being a cost of doing business and become a product. That last shift is the one that changes a company permanently. Once a department has revenue targets, it will defend them, and the arguments for defending them are always reasonable. Emissions compliance, warranty exposure, liability, technician safety. Every one of those is true, and every one of them also happens to protect the line item. None of that requires a leak or an insider. It is all visible from the yard, on one Friday, to anybody who knows what to look for. Which is why the mechanics and owner-operators in these comment sections are consistently ahead of the coverage. They are not smarter than analysts. They are simply reading a signal that arrives years earlier, because it arrives on their own site, rather than in a quarterly filing. There is a second version of the same tell from the other side of the counter, and it is worth hearing, because it comes from an employee rather than a customer. A man working at a John Deere dealership in Africa described being issued an app that requires a timed inspection every time a technician touches a machine. Some of the questions require stripping components to answer. The inspection is timed, so head office can see whether it was skipped. The farmer does not want an inspection. The farmer wants the valve replaced so he can get back in the field. Nobody is paying for the hour the app takes, and the technician is the one standing between a system built to be measured and a customer who is losing daylight. That is the same policy layer, on a different continent, on a different color of paint, told by the man being squeezed by it. It also shows the tell is not brand-specific, which matters if you are using it to make a buying decision. This is not a story about yellow being bad and orange being good. It is a test you run on whoever you are about to buy from, including the challenger everybody is currently praising. Once you know the tell, you can find it everywhere in this industry, including in places that have nothing to do with construction. A retired equipment buyer put the underlying stake in 9 words that took 55 likes. In the middle of nowhere, downtime is the problem. That is the sentence every service policy should be written against, and almost none of them are, because downtime happens on the customer's balance sheet and the policy is written against the manufacturers. 2 different balance sheets, 1 machine, and only one of the 2 parties gets to write the rules. That asymmetry is the entire reason the test below is worth running before you sign rather than after. Another operator described lead times running out to 2 years on some new orders, with mining operations buying used trucks from overseas rather than wait. When the delivery date moves past the life of the contract the machine was bought for, the new machine has stopped being an option, no matter how good it is. And a third put the cost hierarchy in the order that people who actually run iron use. Fueling costs can be factored in, maintenance can be factored in, downtime can never be factored in, and it will lose you money. So here is the test. And you can run it in 1 phone call before you sign anything. Call the parts counter of the brand you are considering. Not the salesman, the parts counter. Ask 3 questions. First, if my machine throws an emissions or hydraulic fault on a Friday afternoon, what is the earliest a technician can be on site? Second, is that technician permitted to bring the likely part on the first visit, or does he have to confirm first and return? Third, can my own mechanic read and clear a code on this machine, and what does he need in order to do it? You are not really asking about your machine. You are asking whether the company trusts the man it sends, and you will hear the answer in how the counter responds, not just in what it says. A partsman who has these numbers ready has been asked before. A partsman who has to go and find somebody works for an operation where nobody has thought about it from your side. Ask the same 3 questions of the independent shop you would use if the dealer failed you, because their answers tell you the other half. If the independent can get diagnostic access and a service manual, you have 2 suppliers. If he cannot, you have 1 supplier and a machine you are renting from him for the life of the asset, whatever the invoice said when you bought it. A company that trusts its field people sends them out with the part already in the truck, because whoever wrote that rule has stood on a job site at 4 in the afternoon with the light going and understood what a second trip costs. A company optimizing billable events sends a man to look, because looking generates an invoice, and fixing generates a scheduling problem that lands on somebody else's number. If the counter cannot answer those 3 questions, that is an answer as well. A dealer who knows them cold has been asked before, by people who were counting. The mechanics have been running this test informally for years, and they have been right earlier than the analysts every single time, because they are reading the input rather than the output. There is one honest caveat on all of this, and it should be said, a single bad visit is not a diagnosis. Every dealer has a bad week. Every dispatch system has a Friday it handles badly, and a technician who forgets a part is a human being rather than a strategy. The tell is the policy, not the incident. What you are listening for is whether the man was unable to help you or forbidden to. An earnings call reports what a policy did to revenue last quarter. A blown hose on a Friday reports what that policy is going to do to the customer base over the next 5 years, and the second report arrives first. There is a reason nobody at head office sees the second report. It never gets written down. The customer does not file a complaint, because complaining takes an afternoon and changes nothing. He simply prices the next machine differently, or calls a different dealer, and the company finds out years later when the volume moves. By then, the policy has been generating clean revenue for so long that it looks like one of the things holding the business up. Subscribe if you want more of these. This channel covers the real story behind the machines, the part the dealer never puts in the brochure. The man with the skid steer never needed a downgrade note or a price-to-earnings ratio. He needed a hose. What he got instead was a policy, and by Monday morning, he had worked out everything the analysts are still writing notes about.